I'm happy that we have so much leadership in this room. This conference has been extraordinary. I'm happy to be here with somebody who has emerged this year as one of the most effective and impactful criminal justice advocates, surprising, I think, herself as much as anybody else. And I'm also proud to announce that while we are sitting here, President Donald Trump is in the Roosevelt Room with a bunch of senators, a bunch of our friends, a bunch of TV cameras, announcing that he is going to support the First Step Act, which is unbelievable. We'll get into all of it, talk about it, but the journey to get from a president who, when he was being sworn in, was talking about American carnage. When he was elected, the prison stocks went through the roof, the assumption being that he was going to go on a prison building boom. To go from that less than 2 years ago to what's happening right now, where he's endorsing prison reform, sentencing reform, talking about Miss Alice Johnson, as he loves to do. Oh, by the way, Miss Alice Johnson is here. Give a round of applause, by the way, Miss Alice Johnson, who is here. And we'll get into her story. But it would have been impossible, and I can say this because I've been front row for this whole process. This whole motion of the president, at least on this issue, if not others that we care about, would not have been possible had it not been for Kim Kardashian. It would not have been possible. And
Thank you.
And I want us to take the time that we've got. They said I was going to have a clock. Oh, that's my clock? Okay, good. I want to take a little bit of time. We'll get into First Step Back. We'll talk about our crazy adventures in the Oval Office together. But I don't think people understand. You were almost destined, in a way, to get involved in this issue because of your father. Can you talk a little bit about the fact that people don't see you as this, but you are the child, the daughter of a major criminal defense attorney who took on some of the toughest cases, who was fearless, who was bold, who was effective. Talk a little bit about your dad and the impact that you growing up watching your dad had on you.
Yeah, well, my dad was one of my best friends. So he would talk to me about everything. It was not just like a father-daughter relationship, but a real friend. So when he was, involved in cases like the OJ case, that one was obviously, that was his best friend. So it was just deeper. And, Nicole was my mom's best friend. So it was more than just a case that he took on. But a lot of the meetings were held at our home. So we would have, Johnny Cochran, Sean Chapman, who's here in the front row, who helped us with Alice. But, Bob Shapiro, like all the attorneys would meet at our house. And so they had all of the evidence books in a library at my dad's house. And so on the weekends when no one was around, I'd be going through these evidence books and looking at crime scene photos and wild stuff that, my sister Courtney would run in and be like, what are you doing? Why do you care about this stuff? Like, leave it alone. You're not supposed to be going through it. And I just was always so interested in it. And I would always ask my dad questions. I was always really present. And him being an attorney and the stories that he told us about, it was more like business law at the beginning and just representing his friend right out of college who was OJ and all of business stuff. It only became criminal for this case for him, his friend. But I was always really fascinated by it, and he would always share so many stories. And, when the chance came that I happened to be on my phone, happened to be looking at Twitter at a certain moment of the day and saw a video that she had made, and a company, The Mic, had posted it on their social media, and people that I followed were reposting it, and it popped up on my feed. I always say that Alice, she found me, and I just felt like, well, there has to be something that I can do And just the power of social media is, crazy and scary as it can be. It was really beneficial and helpful in this case because I saw her face. I saw her story. I saw her children. I saw her sisters. I saw her whole life in a few-minute video that changed my life. And I couldn't sit back and let this happen. I was at least going to try.
Well, I'm glad that you did. That's worth a round of applause, guys. Topeka Sam is here, by the way. Give her a round of applause to Topeka Sam. You'll hear from her later on. Behind the scenes trying to figure out how to get the video to happen. There's so many miracles that had to happen even for the video to get made and for that to happen and for it to get to you. But other people would have seen the same video and had a different reaction. I mean, for instance, you quite famously, you're a crime victim. You had a very scary experience being a crime victim. You could have said, listen, you need to be locking up more people. You could be one of those celebrity activists who's on the other side of this. How do you process, your own experience on that side of it, and yet still come back around and say, listen, we need to be doing something very, very different?
Well, I think going into Alice's story, it was nonviolent, and it was her first offense, and she's a mother, and one of her children had passed away, and she had lost her job. I mean, there was like a set of circumstances that led her to make the choices that she made, and I just felt like taking myself out of the being a victim myself. I don't ever really have a victim mentality. I'm not saying that if that's how you cope, that's not appropriate. I'm just saying for me personally, I've never taken on that. I've always tried to really genuinely learn. And I feel like the way I was living my lifestyle, not that anyone should go through that, but like I learned so much from it that I'm okay with my experience. And I do believe that it was meant to happen to me because I'm a different person because of it. So I never have really put
How are you different?
I mean, when you become a mom, you change anyway. But I think when like your life is at stake over material items, it just all of that stuff goes out the door. Like none of it matters. And just my priorities completely changed. And what is important to me changed. I mean, just my whole life changed. And I'm a better mom because of it. The things I'll teach my kids are different because of it. What I value. I mean, even now with the fires, when everyone said we have an hour to evacuate, I was like, let's go. I don't need anything. Like I truly was like, I had photos and everything on a hard drive. I just grabbed my hard drives, but I don't know if I would have been in a more frantic place had that not happened to me in the past. Like there was nothing material that I even cared to take. So yeah, it changed me a lot.
Well, it's a good thing that it did. Now, you've said things I think that are surprising to a lot of people that you've had experiences and conversations with people who have done acts that involve violence.
Yeah.
And your heart is open to them as well. Say something about that.
Yeah. So when I first met Alice and I thought to myself, well, this can't be fair. I mean, a nonviolent drug offense, her first offense, has no criminal past. Her family doesn't have any criminal history. I thought, okay, well, maybe if I were to research other people, maybe I would look for someone, again, that's like exactly like Alice. And then I went to prison. Scott Budnick took me to CIW, and I met with these women. And I was so fortunate. About 15 or 20 women shared intimate details of their history with me and their stories and why they're there. I didn't mean to have a judgmental mind going into it, but I thought, okay, well, if anyone's ever, taken someone's life, I don't think I could really stand behind this. I left there after sitting there for hours talking to these women and thought, I am no different than them, besides a bad decision. and a poor choice. And hearing their stories, it changed my life. I mean, and to think, I mean, obviously there are people in prison that really do deserve to be there. And then there's people that have spent time where I am certain, that they have learned and grown. And people there, even Scott took me to Lancaster, and we met with these men, and they were really open with me too and shared really personal details. And for someone, even for someone that has like maybe was with a friend and they all got into a fight, didn't even touch anyone, but was in a situation where someone was killed out of like a club fight, and they're spending life in prison. There's so many scenarios that just do not make sense. And I do believe in rehabilitation, and it's opened up my mind. So I thought, if I came in so judgmental and I've changed so much, why wouldn't I want to be here and share it with people that maybe felt the same way that I did, and that could help spread the word and just help fix our system?
Well, I'm glad that you are. I mean, one of the things that people are like, well, Kim Kardashian, like, she shouldn't be involved with this and blah, 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 and who she thinks she is, woo, woo.
But here's this. I always give props to the organizations behind this. I do get how it could look like I just came in here, made a phone call to the president, Alice is out, and that's it. It really wasn't like that. I mean, I know 6 months of me communicating with the White House is not a long time at all. But the team that was hired before this has worked with Alice for years. So I give props to Brittany Barnett, to Buried Alive, to everyone that has helped us along the way. I've never claimed to do this by myself. I've always said, use me. I know that I could walk into the White House and have the conversation, so I'll be the vessel, and we work together as a team, and everyone is happy. And Sean was with us there too. But it's not me, and it's not. I'm never claiming. I don't want all of the props for it. Right. It's the team together.
Well, I think part of what I loved, pulling out of you is you did make choices that other people could make and haven't made. Let's just be honest. Yes, maybe you don't want all the credit and the claim, and you get as many criticisms as you get applause, so maybe it all washes out. You have like 120 million Instagram followers. You have more Instagram followers than some countries have people, okay? Like, you have a massive platform and megaphone. And the fact that you've chosen to use it in the way that you're using it is really, really extraordinary. But let's talk about, this was not an easy thing. Alice coming out, others that we're fighting for to get out, getting the First Step Act done. What goes through your mind when you decide, I'm going to call Ivanka Trump? Like, you have her cell phone number. Maybe you hadn't been using it that much after 2016, but you had it. It's in your phone. Your IVA, there it is. And you're going to call. What is going through your mind? Do you think this is going to go badly? Do you think, what the heck? Do you think, I know I can convince her? Just talk about the moment of decision to actually use your power for good.
Well, I was first going to go just straight and try to figure out how to get to the president. And then a friend said, why don't you try calling Ivanka? She really believes in a lot of the women's rights that I know I believe in. And I thought maybe together, she would be able to have a conversation with her dad. So I call her, and she connects me with her husband, Jared. And he has been amazing. He has fully listened. Ivanka was amazing in really connecting me, and we really worked together as a team to present Alice's case.
But you're not a Trump person. I mean, I don't mean to get into your business, but I mean, how do you? I mean, a lot of people I think might say, well, I just Trump, like they just can't get over that to make the call. So how do you get over the Trump? How does that work in your mind?
I mean, to me, it wasn't really I did consider the fact that I would get a lot of backlash if I went to the White House. But for me, if it's a life versus my reputation, like that, people talk shit about me all day long. Like I didn't really care, you know? It really didn't, like what more could they say about me? Seriously. Like it really, when I outweighed the options of bad stories about me that would probably last a week in this day and age news cycle versus saving someone's life, that wasn't an option. I will gladly go there and take the heat. And I also felt like, okay, if he's going to listen to me and he's taking the meeting, maybe I can really get through to him and really explain to him. And from meeting all of the people that I have met behind bars, I guarantee you they don't care who signs that clemency paper. Like, so it wasn't an option for me. And I mean, what are we going to do? Wait 4 years, 8 years for the person that we might like a little better? But it just wasn't even an option.
You know, I've had the pleasure, bizarre experience of walking in the Oval Office with you, sitting down across from President Trump, and trying to make this case. And one of the things I just want to say to people, because I've been doing this for 25 years, she's been doing it for 20 months. You're really good at what you do, man. Like,
thank you. No, you guys should have seen Van in the Oval Office. I was like silent. I sat there and was like, I can't believe he is saying this to the President of the United States.
I kept it real. I mean,
Yeah.
It's not like you don't hear me on TV, so I couldn't go in there and act like
But he listened, and he was respectful, and you were they had a really great conversation and shared their opposing views, and were super real with each other, but were respectful. And I do believe he heard you. I mean, he just endorsed the First Step Act. Like, he heard you.
Well, I appreciate that. But part of what I found in terms of just watching, I just want to brag on you a little bit because people don't see it. You can't teach some things. Real passion, real courage, real focus and dedication, you can't teach. If somebody's in that room will hypnotize you. If you're in there for ego, if you're in there for, I just want to get a photo op, you'll forget what you went in there to talk about very easily. What I love about the way you do what you do is that you did not take your eye off the prize 1 second. And the president said something. I mean, yeah, it's worth giving good people some credit when they do good stuff in a good way. And the president got a little bit afraid of some of the stuff you were asking him to do. And I was in there. I was doing my best. Others were in there. They were doing their best. And you found the argument. I'm not going to reveal it because it's just still in process. But you were able to find the argument that calmed him down and that made him feel comfortable and that it moved him an inch. And I was like, this sister is bad. I mean,
Thank you.
And so I want to know going forward, as you think about, this massive platform that you have, you think about how many people are locked up. How do you see your role going forward? I mean, do you want to keep doing this? Are you one and done? Are you out? I mean, what can we expect as the rest of the people in the field from Kim Kardashian in the months and years to come?
It's not a one and done. I definitely saw how Alice and her family's life has changed by having her back in their lives, and that's really inspired me. I've learned so much along the way. I've met so many amazing people along the way that I feel like what we did was effective, and I feel like we can be so much more effective, especially the more that I learn. So I'm here. I'm going to do what I can. I'm appreciative of all the help and support of everyone that I've learned from and the organizations that we've been working with. So there's about a handful of cases that we're working on. I mean, I get so many prison letters, and I read them literally. It's like my nighttime reading before I fall asleep, and try to find cases that are really, that I'm really passionate about, that I really believe in, and continuing to send those to the team to vet them. I mean, we made a realistic goal of like, okay, if we can do 2 of these a year, I would be, I would feel like I'm doing something. And so now it's like 5 at a time.
Okay, hold on a second. Hey, Jessica, I'm on stage with Kim Kardashian. You just left the White House, I assume?
We watched you on TV.
Wait, say it again?
Standing 2 people over from the president while he announced his support for prison and sentencing reform in the First Step Act.
A round of applause for Jessica Jackson. I'm going to let you go, but I do want to, I'm going to put the microphone up to the phone one more time. Can you explain how you feel right now being one of the main people going in the Trump White House, getting beat up and called a sellout and everything else, to be standing there with him announcing that 100,000 people are going to be able to earn their way home sooner? How does it feel to be one step closer to victory?
I am so proud to have been there and to have been part of an incredible team and an incredible effort by amazing advocates that put aside their politics and crossed the aisle and showed some real courage just because they believe that nobody should sit in prison waiting while our government plays political games.
Well said. All right. I'll call you back. Well done. That's pretty dope.
Yeah.
It's just hitting me that we might actually get this damn thing done.
Very cool.
My last question for you is: you're a mom, and I think a lot of times people, they still see you as that young socialite hanging out with Paris Hilton, that kind of stuff. But you're a mom of 3 kids of African descent. You got 3 black kids in the hood. That's what we say. As you think about your children growing up, as you think about how many kids of color are getting caught up in the system, does that ever impact you or give you extra motivation, as a mom, as you deal with this topic? I've never heard you talk about it as a mom of 3 kids that have a black dad. In the hood, we just call them black kids. In the suburbs, they're mixed, but. How does that impact you?
I definitely think about it all the time, and especially if you grow up, I think, with too much privilege, then it can be a whole other set of problems. I was very fortunate to grow up in Beverly Hills, and I would say 90%, maybe 75, 80% of the kids that I grew up around, just from what they saw and who their parents were and what they were given growing up, has ended up dead or on drugs or, overdosed, and just no motivation to really get out there and work. So I think that I see things, differently. I don't want them to get caught up in the system for other reasons. And so it's definitely something that my husband and I talk about all the time. Even I was telling you, I got pulled over, and my daughter in the back seat was, like, what's going on? And she was so freaked out. And you were telling me about, that stuff that you're working on, and a story that he was telling me about getting pulled over and what that would be like. And I said to my daughter, I was like, I called my husband and I was like, you know, we're really going to have these conversations when our kids are old enough, when they're driving and they're out. And I don't even know how to fully communicate to them how they should be and what they need to know. And that's going to have to be a big conversation. And so it does motivate me. I definitely don't want to see my kids in the system. A lot of the stories that I've heard from people that have participated in a lot of violent crimes, so much of it has to do with how they were raised and what they were exposed to and what they know growing up. And I just would never want my kids to be in that position.
You know, it's so interesting. I hadn't thought about it, but it is, you can have too little privilege or too much privilege and wind up, you know, making bad decisions, and folks in the middle make bad decisions as well. But I hadn't really thought about that. You mentioned your husband. You guys have different politics.
I feel like he's very misunderstood and
Say
just
more.
is the worst communicator. But when we talk about it, we have very similar politics. He's very not political, actually. He just happens to like Donald Trump's personality, but doesn't know about the politics. So I've educated him recently. And and I think it gets really misconstrued. He will always say he was friendly with him before, and he's the same person and friendly with him now. And I could also coexist with someone and still have different political views. You know, my mom and my stepdad did that. It's fine to be different and have your own view. I think what my husband fights for, and again, he's not the best communicator in explaining it, but what he fights for is the right to like what he wants to like, even if it's different from what you like. So he's not, he never said, okay, I know all these, you know, what's going on with immigration, and I know this and I know that. If he really knew, he would feel very compassionate about it. So he's never said that he supports that. I know it's very confusing because when you see someone wearing a red hat, you would think that they're supporting that. But he's just fighting for free thought and for the freedom to like a person, even if it's not the popular decision. So.
You know, I've said to you before, and I'll say it again. I love the way you love your husband.
Oh,
I do. Fab, I'm gonna get you later. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like you love this man,
yeah.
and you're trying to be like a Kanye translator. You know what I mean? In a way, you
No,
know.
I he does need a translator, for real.
Can you?
But I'm around him all the time, so I know what he talks about at home, and it's always, I'm like, wait, you just said basically the opposite of what you just showed out there. So,
Yeah.
and sometimes I always want him to have his own journey. I'm not here to always be, I could have easily, right after, you know, he went to the White House or has been outspoken, I could have easily been on social media and corrected him. But I also do believe in people, you know, have their own journeys, and I believe, I know his heart, so I know that one day what he's been trying to say will come out. It's taken a little long, so I'm jumping in and helping him out. But I just know his heart, so I never really stress too much.
Tell me why you love him so much. Seriously.
No, as much as I won't agree with something, I do respect the fact that he's always who he is, no matter if it's popular, no matter if it's the cool thing to do, he's always himself. And that's something that, you know, being in the business, and I look back at like all the products I would endorse and cupcakes and shoes that I would never wear and all this stuff that I wasn't me, and I would do it for the check. I'm not like that anymore because of him, because he has really shown me like what to do, what I believe in. And I respect that of him as a person, even if I'm like, what is he saying or what, like, you know, and I might inside just want to be his translator all the time, but I do respect that he has his own path and he's his own person and he has his own opinions.
Well, listen, I respect you. Oh, but first of all, give a round of applause. That's beautiful. Now, look,
Thank you for having me.
if you're somebody in your life don't sound like that, enough said. But I respect you, and I think increasingly people who are frontline are respecting you. You really are an amazing team player. You love to be a part of the collective. You never say ever, I got this, I know this is my thing. You're always, what do you guys need? What do you guys need? How can I be helpful? How can I be useful? You're setting an example, I think, for other folks in your industry at your level of how to be involved and really be a blessing to this movement. And you've been a blessing to our movement, and we thank you very much, Kim Kardashian.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.